There was this thing with John Wayne.
Good morning, everybody. Almost afternoon. My name is Brian Colburn, and I run Sitch Radio here in Irvine, California. And this podcast studio has the mission to help you tell your story. I'd podcast that. This podcast, we're going to be going through some changes starting next week. But this podcast is to talk about podcasting, not the industry, but how to become a better podcaster. Lessons learned over thousands of episodes published. Couple hundred in a can that'll never see the light of day. You're going to learn from my mistakes. Today, I'm kind of doing something different. This is usually a pretty short show, but today I have a guest, and I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Todd De Voe. Todd, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, thank you for having me.
Hey, man.
The dude.
Todd lifted his chair because he wanted to look taller, so the top of his head's now clipping the camera.
Yeah.
Don't you, dude, Joey, when guests come in and just move stuff around, huh?
It's the worst. There's a story behind that.
You're short.
I'm 5'10", so if that's short, that's short. But I was watching this thing TikTok, right? TikTok is it's a wonderful thing. Sometimes it's a waste of time, but we're on TikTok as well. And there was this thing about Hollywood where they would stand on a tomato box, they called it, and to make short people taller. And so Kirk Douglas is standing next to John Wayne in a Western. John Wayne is a very tall guy. He's like 6'5" or something like that. And Kirk Douglas is about 5'9", 5'10". So in the scene, they're arguing about shooting the guy. And Kirk Douglas goes, "Oh, my guy fell first." John Wayne looks at Kirk Douglas, who's standing on a tomato box, and goes, "Well, my guy was taller," and walks out of the scene where Kirk Douglas couldn't move because he's on the tomato box, and kind of left him sitting there. And he kind of, that's what I thought was funny. So that's what I am today. I'm standing on a tomato box. I want to look at myself, look a little bit taller than I maybe really am.
You know, sometimes when you ask people that really like history a question, you just regret it immediately. There's that old adage, never ask a question you don't know the answer to. I've learned quite a bit about tomato boxes today and Hollywood. John Wayne.
Kirk Douglas.
He's pretty short now, though.
I think he's dust in the wind.
Dust in the wind. Okay. Today, we're going to talk about podcasting equipment. Now, for those of you who don't know Todd, he's one of the main reasons this studio actually stood up. The first show I ever worked on was 2008. Todd came to me, 5 years ago, and he needed to record guests to play audio files and or video to his class that was moved from in-class to online. And out came that dust and brainstorm was EM Weekly.
Yeah, I remember you gave me like this tiny little Zoom recorder, like a Zoom One field recorder, and I tried recording on that. It has it wasn't bad necessarily, but it wasn't great. It just had some lackluster to it. And so, I was goofing around with this and that, and then we're drinking coffee, which we do often.
And
that's
how we met.
So yeah, and we're sort of chit chatting. Brian goes, "Hey man, why don't you just start a podcast?" He goes, I kind of dabbled in podcasting. Because there's some really cool free, free's being kind of key right there when you're starting off, free software and things that you can do. Just get yourself a condenser mic, plug it into your laptop, and then you can start recording and you can start interviewing people through Zoom. And this is everybody. Brian and I think we set the standard for Zoom and podcasting because we were using Zoom before Zoom was cool.
Back in the day. And
it was free.
Over these 5 years, equipment's changed quite a bit.
Absolutely.
Software's grown up. We started off recording and editing in Audacity. Audacity was just purchased. It's still a tool, still out there. And some changes I hear are coming. However, I still have Audacity on my machine because some people that come here still use Audacity. So I've got to be able to open it up and open their projects up and etc. However, we've even moved on to utilizing different software to edit and record. But
talk about laptops too.
Yeah, let's start with the basics.
Yeah.
And laptops is a great place to start. I was actually going to start with Mike, but
yeah,
laptops are a great place to start. Whatever computer you're going to utilize to record your shows on, make sure you check the specs for the equipment and software you intend to put on that machine. Make sure you've got enough RAM, make sure you've got enough memory. Ensure that you have a file structure in place, because when you're 270 episodes in and you need to find a file, you don't want to have to search through files just in a single file folder. So I'm pretty anal when it comes to file structure.
Me too.
But I mean, I have to be.
I'm not.
Todd's not. Todd's got 18 copies of every file known to man in 18 different places. But set up that file structure. So show title. Inside of that, I use an art file folder for anything art related. I have an episodes file folder. And inside of that is episode 1 folder, episode 2 folder, so on and so forth. And then we send review copies out to customers. So there's a file folder, so I know what's out to them. Version control, using V.1, V.2, V.3 as versions mature. So helpful, so you don't publish the wrong file.
I'm way better at that now than I have been in the past, because Brian was not off base when he said had 18 copies of crap all over the place and trying to find it, and then like which version are we really in? Really excuse me, became crap.
I gave it to you.
What the heck is in this room?
I had a frog in my throat earlier. I was talking like this.
It became critical, right? So yeah, version control is critical. Even on documents, even if it's not the audio file that you're using, just documents if you're doing scripts, things like this. The other thing too with laptops is, like, I started off with just a old laptop. I mean, just what I had was a PC. Plugging it in there and making it work. And then the thing is as you put more files on it, it bogged down. So then I had to go get an external hard drive for it, put everything on the external hard drive, which kind of scared the crap out of me, to be honest with you, just because I was afraid I'd lose the hard drive,
right?
And so then, using file share services like Dropbox or Google Drive or those things like that came into play. Again, the not the bandwidth, but the storage on your computer makes a difference. So these are, your files become very big and taking up a lot of memory and less storage on your storage, right? Even my Dropbox, I have like the largest storage capacity on Dropbox you can, and I'm still a little afraid that I'm going to overdo it.
Right, and it's one of those things. Computers fail. Having a backup is important. I mean, when we first started working together, we were emailing back and forth Word docs.
Where's the FTP thing, right?
What's that?
What was that? That
yeah, we had to use FTP software to upload shows back in the day.
Yeah.
I'm glad technology's really progressed in this space. But there are so many awesome collaborative tools out there. We use Dropbox Paper for some shows. We use Google Docs for some shows. And it's nice because there's one doc. You don't have version control issues. There's one doc, and if it's in the right folder, you can get to it and see what a team member did. Let's move off of machines, but ensure that machine is going to be suitable enough to withstand recording. And again, RAM, huge. Not so much if it's audio only, but more RAM is always better. And then storage size. I mean, we use external hard drives. We use every cloud service known to man because some of our customers prefer Google, some want Dropbox, it's all over the place.
I'm on both.
Yeah, I'm on them all, it seems like.
We'll talk about microphones.
Microphones. This is one of those things. So many people run to Best Buy and grab a mic off the shelf, and they're thinking USB, this is cool. I can plug it into my computer and record.
And one thing, there's like Staples has it. I don't know about Office Depot, but obviously Best Buy and electronic stores, they'll have like these podcast kits, right? You're like one shop, stop, buy this box of crap, and then you're ready to go.
Everything you need to include a ring light.
Which, if you take a look at it, most of it is very substandard equipment. If you're gonna just do it for fun, hobby, or starting off, maybe if you're a kid and you're not doing it, maybe if you're doing it for school projects or something like that, maybe that's great. But if you want to do it professional, this equipment won't last you. Might work for a little bit, but you're going to outgrow it very quickly.
Yeah. And one thing I recommend, especially when it comes to a microphone, buy a microphone that can grow with you. You're going to spend $100 to get an okay mic, but buy one that's USB and or XLR. That way, if your show does grow up and turns into a podcast where you're interviewing guests, you can move from that USB cable to an XLR and plug that mic into an audio interface. Now, you need two mics. You should never share a mic. So that second mic will also plug into the same audio interface, which USBs into your computer for that one signal. However, you can record multiple tracks. So one speaker's on one track, the other speaker's on the other track, and it gives you more flexibility. Now, I'm not talking going out and spending $300 on a mic like I'm speaking on now. You can get an ATR 2200, I believe they are now, for about 120 bucks.
Yeah.
And they're durable and they sound good and they're USB and or XLR. If you want to spend a little more money, this mic we're speaking on now is a Shure mic, and frog's back, and XLR or USB. And Todd, you've used this mic USB.
Yeah, I have. Before I get into my use of this mic, which is I really love this mic, by the way. It's one of the things that I've learned quickly because I didn't take this advice. It's the idea of like pay once, cry once type thing. Especially when it comes to equipment, not stuff that like gets older and you want to move up to the next group. But like I was saying, if you're going to buy a $50 mic, I wouldn't really do that because you're going to eventually then buy the $150 mic. And now you have $300 into, or $200 into something where you could have bought a $200 mic and avoided the crying. I bought this mic, very similar mic to this one. Basically, it was a sale that came across and I was like, okay, I'm buying it. Purchased it. I have it now back into the cable like it is right here, the XLR cable. But I've experimented with it with the USB cable, just plugged into the laptop. Now, some of the stuff that I didn't like about that, one is I didn't have the same control. I'm back to the mixer, and we'll talk about mixers here in a minute. And I like the idea, like if I have to cough, to be able to pull that down quickly, almost like a cough button, cough, and then push it back up. And while my guest is speaking, no one ever knew that I'm coughing.
Right.
But without that, I kind of had to turn my head and pull away from it to do it, to cough. I don't know if it was just as good or not, because I'm also on video, right? Like we are today. That's the only downside about it. But it gave everything else that you need to do. Sound quality was great. You're able to either do they called it dark, light, and I forget what the other one's called.
Yeah, they have room dynamics. Right. You could set to get different sound effects.
Yeah, and it's really cool. And there's a here on the side here. You can't really see what I'm pointing to. There's some controls as well that you can play with, but for me that was a little kind of difficult to do.
Right.
On the mic.
I mean, plus if you touch the mic, we're introducing noise to the mic.
So I actually prefer to go through the mixer. This is my preference. Doesn't have to. But like again, you don't have to purchase the mixer unless you're doing some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about here in a minute.
So now when it comes to mixers or audio interfaces, it allows you to plug multiple microphones into a single device, where you can have a myriad of control, compression, pre-compression, equalizer. I've seen 3 to 12 band EQs on some mixers, mute. There's so much control. Levels is obviously important. And then the simple focus rights, you have an in, you pretty much have a volume. You can supply 48 volts of power to the mic if it needs it. But what it allows you to do is take 2 or more microphones and get one signal out to your computer for a live show like this, and or multiple lines into a piece of software to add EQ, gates, compression. I mean, you can get really complicated if you choose to.
And mixers have come a long way since when we first started, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like when we started, we were taking basically a mixer that say like a an indie band or something like that would use when they're putting a concert on.
Right.
Small, $300 mixer or something like that. And it wasn't really a podcast mixer, but we were able to make it work that way. And then over the last few years, Zoom, not the Zoom software that you buy for doing conference calls, but the Zoom, the audio recording devices, has come out with a few different mixers specifically for podcasting.
Right.
I'm not going to recommend one over the other because it's really personal preference when you can start looking at them, but they're good quality. I know Rode has some. I don't really have played with those at all. And then who else has mixers?
Somebody just came out with a podcast type mixer. But what some of these new mixer for podcasting or audio interfaces for podcastings allow you to do is, say, a mix minus, where you can plug your cell phone in and call somebody up and or take calls during your show, to bringing in Skype on its own track, adding sound cards so you can get sound effects, your intro music, outro music, commercial spots.
I want to talk about mix minus here for a second,
yeah,
because this is why I think it's when I talk about the software or the hardware for podcasting becoming great. So the first mixer that we bought, not the first, second one, because I bought that Yamaha first, right? Yamaha, which was okay, but we bought the Behringers and the Behringer mixers, and so then we had to go out and buy extra hardware to do this mix minus thing, and
that was actually meant for a guitar.
And then I mean, I laugh because like on the phone doing videos, trying to figure out how this thing works, plugging it in, kind of rerouting stuff. I mean, it's a lot of work went into setting up the mix, and once I got my the Behringer set up, I didn't freaking touch it.
Yeah,
I was just like, no, don't touch this thing. This is sacred ground right here. Don't mess with it. But now with the L8 that I'm using,
the piece of hardware does it for you. You plug your phone into one cable. Boop. You don't need to split signal back to the phone, so the caller's not hearing themselves. I mean, it's so much easier nowadays.
One cable,
right? And one thing, if you're not going to bring in phone calls, the Zoom H8. H6, we have one of those in the studio that we use for some remote work. We can plug multiple microphones into it, and it's a small little handheld field recorder, but then we can USB it into a computer and use it as that audio interface while we're recording onto its SD card while we're broadcasting. So it gives you some functionality, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, actually, Zoom, I'm a Zoom guy because I started with Zoom, and I it's like anybody else. You purchase one in the car and you stay with that forever, right? I'm sure other ones are just as well. So, and we're not sponsored by any means. Zoom, if you'd like to sponsor me, you can reach out. I'm pretty fair in that. But we have the H4, H5, H6, H8, right? Those are all handhelds, right? And they're great for going and doing field recording and stuff like this. They were originally done because the first one you gave me was the L1, right? They're originally made for reporters to go out into the field. That's what their book of business was, and to get information. So they're good quality sound, but then you can add them. Matter of fact, some of the coolest things too, if you guys are doing video as well with the Zoom handheld ones, is they can actually tie into your video, and you can be your sound card for that too. So. And then, like I said, Rode has some similar stuff too. I'm just not familiar with Rode as much, but going through the Zoom stuff, and there's one good thing too about sticking with Zoom or with Rode or whatever one you're choosing, one particular brand, is they kind of interact with each other as well. Yeah. So that's the other good side of it too.
So besides this hardware, so you have a microphone, audio interface, you've got a decent computer, you can do some wonderful things in the podcasting space. The cell phone has a lot of capability, but it's really, you need to be conscious of your surroundings and how much noise, whatever type of microphone you're people that just hold a cell phone up and record, don't do that.
Don't do that.
You can plug in lapel mics to your cell phone and record multi-track on your cell phone nowadays with some apps. It's good to have options, because you never know what's going to be needed in the future. But start off small with what you need. But if you buy a decent mic that's XLR or USB, you can start a solo show. If you grow, you don't need to buy a new mic for you and a second mic for your guest, you can just buy that second mic. Let's move on to some software.
Ooh, software.
This studio, we have Audacity, we have Audition, we primarily use Hindenburg because of the simplicity of that piece of software.
I got to tell some story.
Is it about a tomato box?
Tomato box.
Okay, go ahead.
So I had this tomato box. No, just joking. I don't like changing software or using or things very easily. Not that I'm against change. I just get used to using something. As I told you with Zoom, for instance, I get used to using something and I don't like changing because I don't know where the buttons are and things like this, right? And like everybody, sometimes change whatever. I was in Audition. No, I was in Audition. Yeah, I was in Audition. Got used to using it, but obviously I wasn't using the entire package because it's a very professional thing. When I moved, not that Hindenburg is, when I moved over to Hindenburg, I was like, oh, jump me, Brian talked me into doing it. I moved over to it, and it's amazing how simple it made my life by moving to that other software. Now, I didn't move to software because I wanted to use a different software. Brian and I were working on a project together, and it just made sense for us to be in one piece of software because what was happening is he was recording in Hindenburg, giving it to me. I was putting an Audition. My timestamps are just off just a little bit. And so really it made the work structure really hard to do. So whatever you choose to do, if you're working collaboratively, pick one and stick with that one.
Yeah.
And that makes the collaboration easy to do. But going back to Hindenburg, now that we're doing it in one software, it's so easy to work.
And Hindenburg was built for field reporters so they could capture some audio and immediately get it up to the desk. And the simplicity of it, publishing with it is phenomenal.
Yes.
It connects to pretty much every podcast hosting company out there where you can embed the EXIF data in that file as it publishes and writes and uploads straight to your software. So you don't have to use FTP like we did back in the day. It's just a really nice piece of software. It's not heavy. It's very well supported, tons of tutorials. It was so user-friendly for me, having experience with Audacity and Audition. I watched a 3-minute demo and was sold.
Yeah.
And we have multiple license of it now.
Cool too is when you're looking for software, if it's not for you, it's cool because you could do most of them and it kind of tells you a little bit about the others that don't. We'll have a free trial for X amount of days, a week or two, kind of play with it. And they'll give you like the full Monty of it, the full, professional series of it, kind of, give you that taste of it. But you can kind of see what it is like, what it's to use. And if it's confusing for you, go simple, right?
Right.
I mean, like I said, there's the free stuff out there too, right? And free. I mean, GarageBand, for instance, or other things like that are free. They're good. I mean, but if you want more capability, you have to pay, step up a little bit.
Sometimes bells and whistles are cool. I mean, I know people that use full-on music production DAWs, digital audio workstations, and just like Adobe's Audition, there's so many tools there. It's complicated. You've got to learn the menu structure, and then they do an update and they move menus, and it's just cumbersome. And breaking things down to the lowest common denominator is what I like to do. And this tool does everything I need it to do. I'm in, and it doesn't have all those other bells and whistles.
I need to be ding dong proof.
Pretty much.
Because I'm a ding dong.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And then hosting companies. We host with Spreaker. We have a network account there, so we host multiple shows. Libsyn, we started with Libsyn. Blueberry's a great company. There's a lot of good companies out there. Find the company that's right for you that offers the tools you need. Now, when I say that, I want to talk about RSS 2.0.
Wait, before you jump into that, I just want to just give one point of warning. When you're looking at the companies that you're working with for hosting, read the fine print. Free is not always free. And so just be aware of that. So so do your homework. If I would say, if you're going to slow down anywhere before you move into anything, is do your homework on who you're hosting with.
And with that, I want to add to that, and thanks for bringing that up. If it's free, you're the product, and they're going to wrap ads. They're going to read those terms of service. If you're going to podcast seriously, jump into a paid account. There's a lot of companies out there, as little as, $10 a month. You can get into a paid account. And realistically, if you have $30, pay that $10 a month for 3 months, because 90% of the shows that get started don't make it past episode 13.
Right.
So, you spent $30, not for you. You're throwing your mic up on OfferUp or Facebook Marketplace, and you didn't invest a lot of money into that hosting platform. But yeah, anytime it's free, there's something going on in the background. In my opinion, it's good for you to make sure you understand what you're getting into. And if you're going to do this seriously, pay for a hosting platform, because their uptime is good. They're well supported. There's phone numbers you can call to get assistance when you need it. And life is just going to be easier in the long run.
My favorite podcast was on that one of those free accounts where the kid's like, "Mom, I'm recording."
Oh,
And that was it.
One episode published 5 years ago, and it's still clogging up the directories. Oh, good times. Where was I going?
I don't know. Your RSS
2.0. There are some platforms that are supporting more attributes for RSS than others right now, to include payments, to include transcripts. So podcasting is maturing right now. So if you work with a company, take a look at that if you think you're going to mature your show into something else. For example, we have a hosting account with Spreaker. Spreaker doesn't support some of the features I want. So I'm actually going to take I'd Podcast That 2.0 to Buzzsprout because I want to learn and utilize some of the features that it's allowing. Now, just because they allow it doesn't mean your podcast apps that your listeners are listening to allow it. So some of these features that I want from Buzzsprout, you're going to go to that page, and instead of seeing Apple, Google, as far as subscription tools, you're going to see different podcast apps that will actually take those new attributes and push it onto the user. So there's a lot going on. And I know podcasting, there's a lot to it. And you know what, before I get into that, I think we pretty much gave the round robin of some of the basics you're going to need. If you're going to do video, at least have a 1080p camera.
Yes.
Whether it's built in or external. Make sure your lighting's decent.
Can I say one thing about the camera?
Yeah.
Don't buy the 4K. Don't spend the money on the 4K camera, because 99.99% of the world doesn't even can't even use that. Your computer probably doesn't support it.
Your file sizes are monstrous.
So buy that 1080p camera for your video, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. And for example, if you want to test that theory, go to YouTube, start a video, and click on that little gear setting and see what YouTube's serving it to you in. Odds are it's 720p.
Yeah.
And that's all bandwidth related.
I mean, so much so that Audition has the YouTube preset.
Yep.
And it
at 720p. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I've watched shows at 4K, and I'm not getting the 4K resolution.
I don't even know what that
Most
is.
monitors won't take 4K resolution. So it's one of those things that cool to have, but
you know where I've seen 4K? Costco.
The internet hasn't been able to catch up being able to serve 4K. And again, that could change next week. I mean, 5G is rolling out more and more. However, does their computer monitor take 4K? I mean, 5G. There's a lot to it. Being able to record something in 4K doesn't mean it can be served in 4K. So,
and I don't even know if the Costco TV really was 4K. They said it was, and I just believed them.
Oh, it's 4K, but the images it's displaying is on the thing. It's not being streamed to that display TV.
That's why I said.
So with podcasting, a lot's changing. It's growing up. If you want to keep up with what's going on in the latest, go to idpodcastthat.com. We have a mighty network there where I'm publishing the highlights, and you're going to be able to find a lot more information there soon.
And chat.
And there's chat. Yes, Todd, there's chat. Todd, you're getting ready to start 2 new shows. One, you're utilizing Sitch Radio to produce live.
Right.
The second one you're going to do on your own.
Yes.
Do you have all the equipment you need right now, hardware, software, to get it done?
The only software that I need, when I say I need this, like I have a friend of mine, I have access to some of his software. I can like guilt him into letting me use it every once in a while. Okay, he's not gonna let me use it. I'm looking at buying Riverside right now to purchase that software.
Riverside.fm is an awesome software platform, web-based, to where you can bring multiple people into one feed, but it progressively uploads each connected computer onto its own track. So if you have 4 people on there, you're going to have 12 files. You're going to have an audio file for each person, a video file, and then a video file with constant frame rate, which is kind of cool. And it's a great tool. You can stream live to it. However, some platforms that allow you to stream live have a list of approved third-party softwares. So, figure out what you want to do. We use StreamYard to broadcast live.
That was the other one I was looking at specifically for what I was doing, because I'm familiar with both, right? I mean, I've used both. That's one advantage for going through a studio, by the way, is that most studios will have multiple different ways of doing things, and you can kind of experiment of how they're doing it. I was going back and forth today regarding whether I was going to go StreamYard or Riverside, and I think I'm going with Riverside due to the fact that it's this new show I'm putting on, which is called the Leaders Cafe.
You forgot the name of your own show?
No, the frog.
The frog.
Yeah, the Leaders Cafe, which is you can find at the Leaders Cafe on Mighty Network, right? So we have the Leaders Cafe Mighty Network. That's where it's going to live, and it's going to live here as well. But that's going to be a long form audio show, and then the other one, no video. That's the purpose of why I'm not going with StreamYard. And then the other show that we're doing, which is going to be coming out here shortly, working on it. I'm not sure the launch date yet. Is going to be the Todd De Voe Show. Yep, I'm naming it after myself. And the only reason why I'm naming it after myself is because in the industry that I'm in, I'm already, people know who I am. So that's kind of why I'm using it myself. Normally I wouldn't recommend naming it that, but I couldn't think of any other name that would make sense.
And right before we close out, I want to let you know too, Todd also is the host of Business Continuity Today for Titan HST, which is an awesome company with awesome tools if you're in the emergency management mass notification space. Todd is also the host of Prepare, Respond, Recover for Reed Exhibitions, which puts on the Natural Disaster and Emergency Management Expo. So Todd's got a lot of experience, and you will find Todd on I'd Podcast That. He pops in from time to time. Tom. Who's Tom?
Tom.
We're not giving away shoes here. From time to time. And if you've got questions for him or me, I'd Podcast That is a creators community where we can bounce things off each other. There's a lot of free resources, tools, and people, and a great place to keep up with the latest, greatest, what's going on in the podcasting world. Todd, thanks for coming.
Hey, it's always a pleasure.
Dude, you were in studio recording pickups for one of your shows. So I said, Todd, you're going to be a guest. He's like, what are we talking about? And here's our show.
It's the best way to do it.
Joey, roll that music, cover us up. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, hit I'dPodcastThat.com. We'll see you next week.
Take care, everybody.